Adams Archive.
Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to the Adams Archive. My name is Austin Adams, and thank you so much for listening today. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing how the same man who was just arrested in the Election Day terror plot was actually given a visa, a special visa, under the Biden and Harris administration. Then we will be moving on to our next subject, which is that President Trump just went on to Andrew Schultz's podcast, and he continues to go on these podcasts, which I think is probably the best move. We saw Kamala do this in like the worst way ever when she went on the Call Her Daddy podcast, which is a female-centric sex podcast. And now Trump just continuing to go on the largest shows in the country without making himself look like a fool. So we'll look at some of those clips and what they discussed. Then we'll move on to Reddit banning the forum dedicated to sharing information about Thomas Crooks. Now, why would they want to do that? I wonder. We'll talk about that too. Then we had the University of Kansas professor that was discussing in front of his class on a recorded call talking about Trump supporters and how they should be lined up and shot. And there is some breaking news about his position at that university that we will discuss as well. Then we'll move on to a clip that just came out of vice president, presidential candidate Harris, who is in a live interview. And there's been all the speculation about the earrings that she wore during the debate. She's been wearing them literally every interview since. And she's on a Zoom call and she says something that alludes to what everybody's thinking and believes, which is that somebody's feeding her all of this information. Then the last conversation we will have is around Hurricane Milton that just struck Florida last night. Now we'll look at some of the devastation, some of the conversations surrounding it. Was it as big as we thought? Doesn't look like it, but I'm sure there is still some terrible, terrible destruction in its wake. So we'll look at that. And then we'll also discuss the response from the current president as well as the VP. And the last clip will be around Biden discussing them controlling the weather. Are you a conspiracy theorist? Probably, if you listen to this show. All right, all of that and more. But first, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Leave a 5-star review. That is the only way that you can help move this podcast and help get the word out. So tell your friends, tell your family, leave a 5-star review, hit the subscribe button. Head over to YouTube. You can watch all the clips that we're looking at, talking about. You can see my wonderful face as we're talking about them. And head over to RoninBasics.com. You've heard about me talk about this for a few months now. However, we just now are getting in one of our main products, which is the Faraday phone sleeve. So you can head there right now. You can purchase one. It will be shipped to you the same day. All right. Head over there. Check out our products, the EMF blocking Faraday hat, the RFID blocking wallets, and the Faraday phone sleeve. Can't forget about the beanies as well. So head over there, RoninBasics.com. And without further ado, let's jump into it.
The Adams Archive.
The very first topic that we're going to discuss today is that there was an immigrant who was arrested in an election day terror attack. So allegedly him and another individual were going to go to the elections and cause mass terror by killing as many people as possible, becoming martyrs. But let's go ahead and read this article. It comes from the Post Millennial. It says the Afghan man arrested Tuesday by the FBI for allegedly concocting an election day terror plot was allowed to enter the United States of America as a special immigrant in September of 2021. Nasir Ahmad Tawhidi, 27, entered the U.S. with a special visa during the Biden-Harris administration's chaotic and botched American withdrawal. Now, one thing that I have to question is, How concerned should we be about this happening by somebody else now? If there's one plot, there's probably two plots. There's all of these immigrants that are here for a reason, right? Maybe some of them are here to improve their family's situation and outcome. Maybe some of them are here to, I don't know, move drugs and human trafficking. Maybe some of them are here to escape a gang-ridden country that they come from, which is great. Do it legally, right? Do it legally. You should absolutely be able to immigrate here just like almost every one of our ancestors did. However, the amount that have come over the border in the last 4 years alone is the same amount of people as 1 to 2 states combined. 10 million, the number has been thrown out, 16 to 20 million now immigrants in our country. And when you understand that the total population is roughly 330 million, that starts to become a big issue, right? Especially when we talk about housing, we talk about jobs, we talk about inflation, homeless crisis, you name it, this will exacerbate the issue. Now, one issue that we can kind of foresee as a result of this is the amount of terrorists and gang-affiliated members. We saw this with all the Venezuelan gangs. We saw this now with this Islamic State group, ISIS, right? So they've been sending people here, and they are going to attempt these things. Nasir Ahmad Tawhidi entered the U.S. with a special visa during the Biden-Harris administration. During the botched American withdrawal from Afghanistan, this says, that saw 13 U.S. personnel killed and billions of dollars in military hardware left to the Taliban. The FBI has charged Tawhidi with conspiring and attempting to provide material support to the Islamic State group. He allegedly confessed to the FBI that he and a juvenile co-conspirator were planning an election day terrorist attack on large crowds, and both were anticipating Islamic martyr deaths. Tawhidi had reportedly wrapped up his affairs, liquidated his assets, and bought a one-way ticket for his wife and child to fly back to Afghanistan. Tawhidi could be sentenced to 35 years in prison. Let's see, what else here? It says, on October 7th, FBI assets allegedly caught Tawhidi and the juvenile at a rural location in Western District, Oklahoma, where they had purchased, received, and took possession of 2 AK-47s, 10 magazines, and 500 rounds of ammunition. The Department of Justice news release explained, upon receipt of the rifles and ammunition, Tawhidi and the juveniles were arrested. I wondered how what kind of went into that. But this is just the beginning, guys. This is just the beginning. The men who were going to attack American citizens on the election day that were caught by the FBI were immigrants allowed here under Biden and Harris. And this is the one of many attacks that we can assume that we're going to see. One of many, because what are these people here for? How many other terrorists, how many terrorist other affiliated people are here? And how many of these attacks are already planned? And who's responsible for this? Well, I think we know the answer to that. And it's the organizers of this mass illegal migration, the ones who are paying people, busing them in, sending them to states. We do not understand. There was a good quote that I saw the other day. It said something about the people who run our country, the people who run the world are either naive and stupid, or I got to look at the quote, but there's a great quote around it. And the idea is that they're maliciously doing this, or they're that dumb, right? Do they want people to be having massive terrorist attacks? I would hope not. What the issue is very likely, and I think everybody agrees on this at this point, is the reason that there's this mass migration is they want to flood these states, the battleground states, with immigrants. Go look at where these people have gone and settled. The number one states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Illinois, right? All of the states that they want to flood with new citizens, and maybe they're not even thinking about this generation. Maybe they aren't even thinking about, oh, how am I going to get this generation to vote for me? No, it's 2 generations from now, 4 election cycles they're thinking ahead. Because if they get an immigrant husband and a wife here and they have a child here, regardless of the situation, that child gets immigrant status. That child gets granted a green card. That child is now an American citizen. Doesn't even need a green card. Now what? Now that child, generally, like 70% of people, 80% of people stay in the state that they were born in, especially if they're low income. Now, what? Let's see, 4 election cycles, 5 election cycles later, that person's 20 and they're voting Democrat. So they look at these numbers and they say, okay, if we get 10 million people here, we send 2 million to Michigan, we send 2 million to Pennsylvania. Of those, that million that settles, I think it was 770,000 in Michigan. Of that 770,000, there's 350,000 couples who are going to have an average of 2 kids, which is another 770,000 people. And in 5 election cycles, the same state that we lost by a margin of 20,000 votes now has 700,000 more people in poverty who are 80% likely to vote Democrat. So they're not playing checkers here. And maybe they are. Maybe they are that stupid to think that if they flood these illegal immigrants here, and maybe they're not that stupid to think that they can get them to vote without voter ID, which we know happens. But even so, the biggest problem is going to be that our country is going to be taken over by people who do not share the same values as us, who did not grow up in a democratic society, who adhere to Sharia law, who are stopping women from going to school. They can't drive cars. They can't show their face, right? It's unbelievable. And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of these terrorist attacks. This is just the beginning of the gang issues that we're going to see with these Venezuelan gangs, MS-13, cartels, because of the border. Moving on. Trump went on to Andrew Schultz's podcast, Flagrant. And I think this is brilliant. I think he should have been doing this all along. Podcasts are the news of today. There's far more people that listen to a podcast than that listen to the news. Makes sense, right? People trust podcasts. Like 80% of people polled trust a podcast compared to like 16% of people that were polled trusted traditional news media. So if that's where people are, and that's where people's trust are, then maybe you should go to the people that are genuine and have those conversations there. And that's what Trump's done. And this says, President Trump's appearance on comedian Andrew Schultz's podcast was widely celebrated on social media, with supporters of the 2024 GOP nominee during Trump as the funniest president in American history. Probably. The unfiltered interview released on Wednesday and published to X, formerly Twitter, covered a range of topics. Let's watch some of the clips. Don't really care about their opinion on it. All right. Let's see. And here we go.
Elon interviewed me on something.
Yeah.
And I think they said 275 million hits or listeners.
That's a lot of people.
That was a
That's
record.
a nation. Yeah.
But it's a whole new, different way of
Can I ask you a question
getting the word out, right?
about Elon specifically? Is he your favorite African American?
He's a piece of work, I'll tell you. You know, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's obviously a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
I mean, when I saw the rocket engines come back, I said, what is that? Like a couple of years ago, you know, I've seen rockets go up and then they crash into the water.
Yeah.
And I see the engines are coming back and they're landing.
It's unbelievable.
They're landing and they land on a raft in the middle of the ocean someplace with a little dot, and they land right on the top of the spot.
All right, one thing to say. Imagine getting interviewed by President Trump and crossing your legs like that in front of him. How dare you, Andrew Schultz? How dare you? Wearing white socks halfway up your shin and crossing your legs like you are running in a marathon in New York.
The little dot, and they land right on the top of the spot.
Right. And my wife can't parallel park.
I know, it's just, most people can't. But no, he's great. But he's got a great heart. He was with me, as you know, on the other night.
Yeah.
And we were honoring a man who got killed at a rally. Corey, firefighter, great guy. And it was a beautiful evening. But Elon went out, and he loved the crowd. He loves the country.
Yeah.
And he's picked a side. A lot of people don't want to pick a side. I have a lot of people that are big supporters of me.
Yeah.
But they won't go all out. You know, they can't.
They're scared.
Quite.
There's a cost.
Yeah, there's a cost.
Yeah.
There is a cost, but there's also a liability. I mean, you know, some people, I respected a lot when this guy was up there doing jumping jacks. You got to vote for Trump. You got to vote.
He was jumping high.
Yeah. He was jumping high.
He looked quite African.
When he jumped, he's in good shape. I'm looking at his waist. I'm saying, wait a minute, does he work out or something? But he had a great time.
This is quite a dangerous interview for Trump, by the way. Like, Andrew Schultz is not setting him up for failure here with a few of the jokes that he's already made, trying to see if Trump will bite. But do them all so far.
And he's not out that much. He's probably maybe a little. Would you say he's a little reclusive? Possibly.
Yeah. He's also busy. He's got like 5 different
He's very
companies.
busy and maybe a little reclusive. Yeah. But he had the greatest time. He was saying, "Look at these people." We had 100,000, more than 100,000 people.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
It was a record. It was nobody's ever seen, and it was really. It was a celebration of a life, and it was really a MAGA. It was a MAGA deal.
Yeah.
And he was a big MAGA person. His family was there, and 2 other people that were very badly hurt were also celebrated. They were very badly hurt. They weren't actually expected to live.
Yeah.
And they lived, and they had incredible doctors. Some of those country doctors are better than the big doctors that we spend a lot of money on, and they don't do as good. I will tell you right now. I don't want to knock anybody, but those country doctors saved 2 people, because I was told that 3 would... No, think of that. 3 would be in trouble, and 3 were going to... Now, Corey immediately, but the other 2 were so bad that they thought they wouldn't make it. Yeah. And those country doctors, they pulled them together. They did a great job.
All right, so there's one. Let's take a look at another one. Here we go.
There is a cost, but there's also a liability. I mean, some people... I respect it a lot when this guy was up there doing jumping jacks. You got to vote.
Also, what we just watched, and here's about Biden.
Over the last week, I have what we talk about, funny or sad. I think it's more sad than funny. Yeah. He has one ability I don't have. Yeah. He sleeps. He can sleep. This guy goes on a beach, and he lays down on one of those, 6 ounce. They weigh 6 ounces, and you can't lift it. Yeah. They're meant for children. Yeah. Young people and old people to lift. Yeah. They're aluminum, hollowed aluminum. Yeah. They weigh very little, and he can't lift. And somebody convinced him he looks good in a bathing suit. And when you're 82, typically bathing suits aren't going to make you look great. You're not going to be enhanced. Yeah. All right? It's just one of those things. I can't be sure about that, but typically you don't.
Depends what he's packing. He could.
I don't know what the hell he's packing, but I don't want to know either. I don't know, but he has an ability to fall asleep while on camera. He can lie down on one of those things, and in minutes, he's stone cold out.
How does he do it?
And he's got cameras because he's the president, so they have cameras on him. Yeah. And then they show him sleeping on the beach. Yeah. You'll never see me sleeping in front of camera.
How do we...
Oh, and last one here. Let's go ahead and see which one. Let's watch this right here.
Get up. How much did China buy today? Sir, I'd call him up and say, you're behind. You have to buy 50 billion. Do you think Biden does that? Biden's sleeping. But over the last week, I have what we talk about, funny or sad. I think it's more sad than funny. Yeah. He has one ability I don't have. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the last thing. All right, so he's holding his own, right? He's on a comedy podcast and seems to be getting the comedians to laugh. Now, one thing I think he talks about there, which is true, we see a lot of the battles between Trump and Biden die down now, which a lot of people have talked about this. If that man was your grandpa, you would just be pissed that they're putting him in this position. You would be mad that they're putzing this old man around and pretending like he's actually doing a job that he's not doing. And it's honestly pathetic that our country is doing that to him, in the deep state would choose. We all know why. We've talked about it before. He's a puppet. He can be controlled at a whim. There's too much dirt. There's too many, too many pieces of blackmail out there on him that have been discussed. But, we all know the reason why. It's the same reason they have Kamala there. They can control him. And so moving on. Reddit bans forum dedicated to sharing information about would-be Trump assassin Thomas Crooks. So Thomas Crooks, the assassin of Donald Trump, had a Reddit forum named after him where people were sharing all of this information about the attempted assassination, trying to figure out who was he? Was this the person that they're saying he is? Was it somebody else? Trying to figure out this conspiracy. And Reddit took it down. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? People sharing information about a presidential assassination. So it says a forum dedicated to sharing information about would-be assassin Thomas Crooks has been banned from Reddit. Crooks was killed by snipers after launching an assassin. Yeah, we know. It violated rules against posting violent content, they say. And that archive of the subreddit shows it was a popular forum that generated a high level engagement. And the posts issued on the forum varied, but all pertained to seeking answers and sharing information about the historical assassination attempt. Questions about Crook's security failures that day and whether the attempt was an inside job were discussed in the section before the ban. Reddit did not provide any example of the violent content shared that went against the company's policies. Reddit is the latest news website to block information from being shared. Now, we remember with the last one, right, or during this one, we remember Fox News live censoring the discussion in a congressional hearing, which I didn't know was even allowed, right? They're calling it a live feed of a public official's discussion in our government. I guess they're a private company, they can do whatever they want, but actively during the live feed, cutting the feed when a question was asked about the multiple shooters theory. And I'm sure these people were getting somewhere. That's what we're seeing in today's modern society, where they cannot, we see it with the hurricane, we see it with every one of these things. They can no longer control the narrative. The narrative has gotten out of control. I heard a comparison during a podcast recently where they talked about how the church loved the printing press originally, loved the printing press. And because they could print all these Bibles and get the word out about and frame the discussions in the way that they wanted to. But then other people were using that to spread information about the church's corruption. And they didn't seem to like it anymore, right? They called for people to stop using it. And that's what we're seeing with social media, right? They created these social platforms to control us with narratives. They created these social platforms so that they could push out propaganda. And now they've lost control of it. We are winning the information war, where the minute a hurricane comes out and we see the response from our government, we're able to see right through it, look up the patents, and see that this could be potentially not as natural as we thought it was. The government is now scrambling, setting up intermediary discussion forums with social media platforms, trying to censor every conversation that poses a threat to their narrative. Scrambling because they created something that they no longer control. And people are seeing through all of their propaganda now. We can no longer be influenced the way that we were just 15 years ago. And so it says Google scrubbed the assassination attempt from its autocomplete search engine. Facebook warned against sharing photos of President Trump raising his fist in the air after the rally, falsely alleging that they were AI generated. And following accusations of election interference by the Trump campaign and Republican lawmakers, both big tech corporations have since fixed their faults. But they're all doing it. They're doing it still, and they're doing it subtly. They're not doing it the same way that they were with mass censorship campaigns, the way that they were during COVID, because there's not as much profitability in this. And if they lose, they're going to be in trouble. We've talked about how Trump needs to just come out and say, hey, whoever is lying in these news media organizations, I'm going to come after you. And if that was on the other side, maybe that's a concern, right? Maybe you say, and maybe it should be a concern from our side. Maybe he shouldn't go after them. But it's absolutely election interference if you're putting yourself in a position where you are influencing the election, putting yourself in a position where you are propping up one candidate and you're the single largest purveyor of information in the country, and what you're censoring is true, factually true. That can be proven in the court of law. So, pretty crazy. Hopefully they move the forum somewhere else. But let's see if anybody has anything to say about this. Doesn't look like it. But I wonder why they would do that. Maybe because they were getting somewhere. As simple as that. Maybe a single post, a single position, a single picture, a single comparison, a single paragraph could have been the reason that Reddit pulled this down, because they don't want to let you know the truth. They do not want you finding it out. Why would they not want that? There's plenty of violent Reddit threads. There's plenty of violence on X. And this is the reason that X is so important. And despite the constant barrage of violence on X, I still like to utilize it. And I'm still trying to grow my platform there. Go check it out. The Austin J. Adams on X. But I think that the violence on X is actually a psyop. There's constantly on X people getting killed. There's all these hyper violent videos that are being shared, just pushed right into your face within 2 seconds. You're going to see somebody, they don't even give you time to scroll or tell you what's about to happen. And you'll see somebody get like beat up or stabbed or something crazy. And it hasn't been as bad in the last few weeks, but I think that's absolutely a psyop. I absolutely think that there is these accounts that are hyper violent on X are being pushed to want to get people off of the platform and to create a narrative around the platform that is negative. I don't think that those are actually people who, at least the largest of the accounts, are actually people who are wanting to just continually push super crazy violent videos. I think that those videos are specifically being pushed onto X so that they can continue their narrative about it being an unsafe place for free speech and a violent platform with anti-Semitism. All they have to do is create all these bot accounts that they pay overseas and then push out all the videos to suit the narrative that they want with faceless accounts. None of those videos that are being pushed by people like that ever are from an individual. They're always from some 18 plus this, whatever this. Like, they're just paying people to pump out media so that it suits their narrative so they can go after Trump and push it as this crazy, unhinged platform. But we need that platform for situations exactly like this, where people can have discussions, figure things out outside of traditional media without any censorship. All right, now moving on here, there was a University of Kansas professor who sat in front of a recorded classroom session and said that Trump voters should be lined up and mass murdered. But then he goes, oh, whoa. I think we should cut that one from the recording. Now, this man, let's see, Professor Phil Lowcock, not sure that applies here. Professor Phil Lowcock, the director of International Student Athlete Support, who works at the university's Sport and Exercise Science Department. And this article says, a professor of the University of Kansas, let's go ahead and watch the clip first, because let's just give our own context around it here. But let's go ahead and watch this clip. Here we go.
Guys are smarter than girls. You got some serious problems. That's what frustrates me.
Let's see, not getting any volume here. All right, here we go. And here is the clip.
That's what frustrates me. There are going to be some males in our society that will refuse to vote for a potential female president because they don't think females are smart enough to be president. We could line all those guys up and shoot them. They clearly don't understand the way the world works. Did I say that? Scratch that from the recording. I don't want the deans hearing that I said that.
Now, his point there was there's going to be certain men. Only men are going to not vote for Kamala Harris, which, again, is an insult to the intelligence of women. Also, more so than what you're saying about men voting for women. The men aren't going to vote for women because they think they're dumb. No, maybe we think Kamala Harris is incompetent. If you throw Tulsi Gabbard up there, I would have been highly interested. I think she should have been the running mate of Trump. I think Kamala is incompetent. I think Kamala is unintelligent. I don't think Kamala is well equipped to take office. But for this man, a professor, the people who are educating your children, you are paying money, a university, this isn't even a community college with some stupid professor. This man was chosen. He may very well have tenure, right? Maybe not, now that we see what the result of this is. But how unbelievable. This is something that if you would have looked back, and this should be historically looked back on, as the same way that we look back on some of the biggest atrocities ever and how they unfolded, right? This professor in a university is on recording saying Trump supporters should be lined up and shot. That's where we've gotten to. And this is supposed to be the tolerant left, right? This is supposed to be the party of tolerance. And we've seen that they're exactly the opposite of that, right? We've seen that they are the ones who are calling for violence. They are the ones who are slinging insults. They are the ones who are going in front of our children and claiming that you should shoot people based on their political ideology. That is not what our country is founded on. I love people who are Republicans. I love people who are Democrats. I love people who are libertarians, who are everything in between. None of them should have violence inflicted upon them because of their political leanings. And what you have to understand about people's political leanings is very often than not, and I did a whole episode on this, on like the predeterminants of your political voting. There's a lot of factors that go into your vote that come from where you come from. The state you were born in, the parents you were born to, your socioeconomic status, your job, your education level. There's so many predeterminants of this to just say, oh, all those people are bad people and they should be murdered. That sounds like something out of Nazi Germany. All that class over there should be lined up and murdered. Mass murder, genocide for political ideology. That's what this professor wants. Now, he has since been put on leave. It says after the video was uploaded on X, let's see if there's a... after the video was uploaded on X, formerly Twitter, there was a fury with calls for Professor Lowcock to be fired and resign. Some users even wanted to see criminal charges be filed. I mean, it's literal incitement of violence. You're not allowed to say that you should do this to that. Like, yeah, you want to talk about speech that is maybe not imminent violence, but like, it's pretty damn close. Maybe he shouldn't go to jail for it, but he should definitely be fired. And he shouldn't be representing a school and educating children. He needs to be fired immediately. It was bad enough he said it, but then he tried to cover it up, one user said. Let's see what else we got here. Somebody else says, what the hell is wrong with people? He should not be allowed to teach and should be investigated. This is one of the many reasons why colleges have become a scam and a money grab. Yep. The University of Kansas released a statement after the backlash and announced that the professor had been placed on administrative leave. Let's go ahead and read their statement here. It says, a statement from the university regarding a classroom video. Here is the University of Kansas's response. And they said, the university is aware of a classroom video in which an instructor made an inappropriate reference to violence. The instructor is being placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. The instructor offers his sincerest apologies and deeply regrets the situation. So they're probably not going to fire him. His intent was to emphasize his advocacy for women's rights and equality, and he recognizes he did a very poor job of doing so. The university has an established process for situations like this and will follow that process. Let's go ahead and see what the actual response to this was, because that's a crazy statement to then back him up and saying, oh, he cares about women's rights. That's why he said you should line up and shoot an entire group of people. Oh, and they eliminated people from making comments. How hilarious. Of course they did, because they don't want free speech. So that is wild. That is crazy. And that's what we're paying tens of thousands of dollars for your children to be taught by people like that. And then for the university to go and defend him. Oh, we're going to place him on administrative leave. Don't worry about it. But all he was trying to do is defend women's rights. No, all he was trying to do is say an entire half of the country should have a genocide committed against them for their political ideology. Speaking of Kamala Harris's competency, there's a clip going around right now where Kamala Harris was on a Zoom call. And on this Zoom call that Kamala Harris was on, she decides to cover her face and talk to somebody. Who could that somebody be? And say, it's a live broadcast. And the microphone picks it up. People have speculated, I being one of them. One thing you'll notice about Kamala Harris is every single interview Kamala Harris has been a part of since the debate, she's wearing those same earrings. The same earrings that everybody is accusing her of having somebody in her ear telling her exactly what to say. Now we have confirmation of that. In this clip, you will see Kamala Harris speaking to whoever that individual is that's inside of her ear, telling them that it's a live broadcast. Embarrassingly, because she didn't even know that they could pick it up on the microphone, which is hilarious. So let's go ahead and watch this video, and you'll hear her say right at the start of it, it's a live broadcast. Here we go.
We really got to watch those areas and those communities. So
she covers her mouth like this and goes, it's a live broadcast to whoever she's speaking to that's in her ear. Who else would she be talking to? Right? What are they trying to tell her there? As my video goes away, let's go ahead and watch the rest of the clip and see if we can get a little bit more context. It's a live broadcast. Listen for that.
Flood. We really got to watch those areas and those communities. So it takes quite a while for that water to drain.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Ken, I have a question for you. You mentioned words matter, and I know there's a lot of media following this briefing. So there have been, we've gone from a Cat 5 to a Cat 4.
Now watch how much she struggles.
Which that a lot of folks have been using as downgrade. But it sounds like you're cautioning us that may communicate a sense that the danger is lessened when in fact it's not. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know a lot of folks are watching right now and would love to have your feedback on how we should be talking about this.
Yeah, we need
Already, we have sent more than 1,000 federal personnel to be on the ground in Florida to assist with what needs to happen in the state to prepare for this hurricane, and we will continue to scale up those efforts. To the people of Florida, and in particular the people of the Tampa region, we urge you to take this storm seriously. As has been said before, this is a storm that is expected to be of historic proportion. And many of you, I know, are tough, and you've ridden out these hurricanes before. This one's going to be different. And so we ask you that by every measure, understand it's going to be more dangerous, more deadly, and more catastrophic. So please listen to your local
Now you can
officials
see
and know what
in this clip, you can see the same earrings, the little pearls with the two gold hoops on the side of it, holding it in, and they wiggle every time she moves her head. The same exact earrings. She has not taken these earrings off. And I want to go back and look at all of the interviews prior to the debate and see if she ever wore these earrings prior to that, because I don't believe that that was the case.
what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. And if you are told to evacuate, please evacuate immediately. Do not wait.
Kamala
until
Harris
it's
said it.
too
Might as well
late.
do it.
And in the hours and days ahead, President Biden and I and our administration will continue to do everything we can to protect the people who have been in the path of this storm. And once the storm has passed, we will be there to help folks recover and rebuild.
All right, now discussing the hurricane here, let's go ahead and look at some of the discussions surrounding it and some of the damage. Here's a video from Fox News, and his point is that they've turned this entire hurricane into a PR battle, right? There's zero genuine concern coming from Kamala or Biden. All they're worried about is the optics. That's all they've been worried about this entire time, and they've been scrambling to try and look like they've been doing anything at all to help the citizens or that they actually care. And all they've seen the people talk about is how they see right through it. Everybody knows that they don't really care. Everybody knows that they're just trying to make it appear as if they're doing enough or giving enough money or they have the funds to be able to even help, and we all know that that's not true. Here's the clip.
Today, and defended his administration's slow response to Hurricane Helene, calling any criticism of it disinformation and pointing fingers at Trump.
There's been reckless and irresponsible and relentless promotion of disinformation and outright lies about what's going on. Former President Trump has led this onslaught of lies. Assertions have been made that property is being confiscated. That's simply not true. They're saying people impacted by these storms will receive $750 in cash and no more. That is simply not true either. They're saying that money needed for these crises are being diverted to migrants. What the heck are they talking about? Stop it. It's outrageous. It's just not true.
Biden's fighting Trump harder than the hurricane. If he should be angry at anybody, he should be angry at his team. They didn't pre-position assets in North Carolina to help in the foothills. Just like Afghanistan and the border, the hurricane's now Trump's fault. Americans have lost power, their homes, some of them even their husbands. They're not worried about what politicians say on TV. They are worried because they haven't seen FEMA all week. Criticizing your government isn't misinformation. It's a God-given right of every American. Instead of battling to save lives, the Biden-Harris administration's treating natural disasters like a PR battle that need to be won with words instead of fast action.
There have always been issues in disasters. Maui, certainly this happened where there's misinformation or there's scams, but we've never seen anything like we have at this level.
The administration will also continue to work out and call out misinformation and conspiracy theories around the storm and federal and state responses. This is wrong, dangerous, and it must stop immediately.
Are we concerned about any misinformation or disinformation regarding evacuations that we need to clear up at this point?
There's been a lot of misinformation out there, Madam Vice President, that's for sure.
The only misinformation we've heard is that Biden's doing a great job. Oh, and if you just drive your electric car, Cat 5 hurricanes will shrink into Cat 2s. Americans are naturally suspicious of the government after they lied to us about, I don't know, Vietnam, Iraq, COVID, Russia, the president's health. This isn't a cheap fake. North Carolina sees the aftermath, and Biden and Harris were late.
So let's look at one more clip about this, and then we'll discuss it, which Biden, they cut it off early in that, which they don't want to spread the misinformation and malinformation. Let's go ahead and watch this, which is where Biden mentions the weather manipulation. Here it is.
Now the claims are getting even more bizarre. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a congresswoman of Georgia, is now saying the federal government is literally controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather. It's beyond ridiculous. It's got to stop. In moments like this, there are no red or blue states. There's one United States of America, where neighbors are helping neighbors. Volunteers and first responders are risking everything, including their own lives, to help their fellow Americans. State, local, and federal officials are standing side by side. Let me repeat, no one should make the American people question whether their governments will make sure that this is acting on strikes. They'll be there.
What did he just say? No one, let me make this clear. Okay, make it clear. Tell me.
No one should make the American people question whether they're side
make
by
it clear.
Side. Let me repeat. No one should make the American people question whether their governments will make sure that this is acting on strikes. They'll be there. We will. Now the claims are getting even more bizarre.
No one should be, let me make this clear. Let me repeat this. No one should be believing their government will be active and
make the American people question whether their governments will make sure that this is acting on strikes.
Will be making sure the active amount of strikes.
They'll be there.
They'll be there. Well, make sure the active amount of strikes will be there, says Biden. Nobody should be concerned about their government. Make sure the active amount of strikes will be there.
Will.
Okay, thank you so much. So going back to the original point here in the original clip where people are talking about it, is he's sitting here trying to say, oh, we would never control the weather. How ridiculous. What a conspiracy theory. Well, when you go back and read the paperwork, when you look at the long list of patents, when you go back and look at the long list of military history where we did this very thing, when you go watch the Michio Kaku discussion, I believe it was on CNN, discussing how we manipulated the weather in Vietnam, how we are actively looking for ways to shrink storms, grow storms, right? Oh, we stopped doing that. Somebody said, I saw somebody post about this, and they said, well, we would never do that. We would never do that because there was dangers, and this was in a ground.news article that was posted on social media. And said we would never do that because there was dangers of making them bigger. Yeah, bitch, you made it bigger. That's our claim. That was the whole claim. Yes, absolutely, you can manipulate the weather. Yes, absolutely, there is patents. Yes, absolutely, the FBI, the CIA, the government has in the past manipulated weather for their own purposes. We saw it in Vietnam. We saw it in China. We saw it in, there's so many examples of this that we saw it in our own Gulf Coast in the 1940s. Example after example. And here he is sitting in front of you. You know, that's all a conspiracy theory. Just like COVID was a conspiracy theory. Just like, you know, the election interference was a conspiracy theory. Just like the Hunter Biden laptop was a conspiracy theory. Just like the vaccine causing health issues was a conspiracy theory. Just like time after time after time after time again. Almost every one of these things. And I'm actually really surprised that Biden called this out. And the reason I'm surprised that he called this out is there's maybe 50% of the right that knows this or understands this or is hearing about this weather manipulation. That leaves a whole other 75% of the population who maybe hadn't heard about weather manipulation up until the point that Biden calls out and says, these conspiracy theorists mentioning weather manipulation. That was the worst thing Biden could have done about the weather manipulation was call it out on national television. Because now the other 75% of people who weren't hearing about it, because you have all these liberals and Democrats in their own echo chambers, not using X, using Instagram, using whatever social media platforms, TikTok, not hearing about the fact that our own government has been manipulating our weather for decades, almost an entire century now, over a century now, since 1916. Now you're going to have people looking into it who weren't looking into it. Just like people found out eventually, even if they were liberal, even if they were Democrats, that the vaccine was not the best choice for their family after you pushed it and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. That lockdowns didn't work. That masks didn't work. That Vietnam was under false pretenses. Right? So many examples of these conspiracies that the government said were conspiracies that ended up being true. And now him saying on national television that this is just a conspiracy theory and these people are crazy and this congresswoman is wrong and so are all of you. Now he's opened that door for so many people who would have never heard about that. And again, it is one of the worst things he could have done is actually mention that on live television. So with that, I will leave you, my friends. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening. Head over to RoninBasics.com, RoninBasics.com. Check out our new website. Just got done redoing it. It is under the final stages of construction, but you can go check it out, see where we're at, look at some of the products. And I appreciate you. I love you. Subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Adams Archive.